I'm so excited. This is the first episode for season 2, and I'm with Gemma.
Pain and joy, I've had it all, had it all. Can I tell you my story? All this is mine.
I've been stalking you, girl.
Oh my gosh. Are you meant to admit that?
I've been stalking. I'm allowed to.
You're allowed to. It's all good.
But thank you for joining us on the Ian Show.
Thank you for having me, Emily.
I am so excited because number one, first of all, your music. I know that that's what people want us to talk about, but we're not going to talk about that because we're going to talk about everything else that is happening in your life. But Mugadin.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no way that I cannot talk about that.
No, there is no way.
What happened when it blew up?
Honestly, it was a pretty crazy whirlwind. So I was a big fan of Winky D in high school. I listened to a lot of his music. And in 2015, just as I came out of high school, I ended up doing a rendition of his track, Musarawa Biggie Man. Yes. And that's how Winky first heard of me. And fast forward 4 years, he phoned me up and he was like, I've got this idea. So we sat in the car and listened to the track, Mugadin. And he told me the story of Adam and Eve and what he wanted, what he sort of wanted, what he dreamed of it becoming. And I mean, can you imagine being a really big fan of an artist and the next thing they phone you up and they're like, come, we're going to do this track. And the next thing you're watching this grow into something you've never seen before. I mean, Mugadin broke Zim's record at the time for our fastest growing YouTube views ever in Zim's history at the time. It was crazy.
Right.
So there's just little old me in dreamland, basically. But that track really changed my life. And I owe so much to Zim dancehall and to Zim music culture and what it's sort of meant to me as an artist.
We're going to come back to that. But for me, who is Gemma? And I know that your story, okay, this is what I know. Research tells me that you grew up in a household that was also very musical. Mom and Granny were musical people.
Yeah.
But you are a lover of ballroom dancing.
Yes, yeah.
Which I was like, girl, what is that?
So I grew up in quite an eclectic household, very cool. My mom is a conservationist and my parents are just really warm and open people. So there were always people coming in and out of the house and staying. We've always had people living with us who aren't technically family. Through my whole childhood. And my gran was a concert pianist, my grandpa played clarinet, and so there were just instruments everywhere. And we were very sort of encouraged to pursue anything that we loved. My mom is also a painter, and my dad draws cartoons. Like, they're a really cool sort of group of people.
Very artistic family.
Very artistic. And I just loved dancing. So I did ballroom and Latin dancing, I did ballet, and I actually competed in ballroom and Latin dancing in the Zim Nationals quite a lot.
Really?
It was really, really fun.
So how come you never pursued that as a career?
I think a part of me really wanted to. I danced into university. I hurt my knees quite badly.
Okay.
But, dance was always a big love, but it was a second love. Music was always the first love. It was always the thing I was going to do. But I did want to find a way to combine the two, and I'm sure I will continue to.
But I think you've already started to do that, because even in your dance moves, I kind of picked it up. So when I read it, I was like, okay, so this is why she dances like this, and this is why some of her, your posture and everything speaks to your love of dance.
Definitely.
But so you went to school in the States, and you mentioned, going into university at Snow University.
Yeah.
How was it to be a white African girl in America? And, America being such a polarized country, did you ever feel like you needed to identify as a specific type of person? Could people contemplate that you were white, but you were also African?
I think that's a really interesting question. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have maybe had quite a similar experience, either being a white African or being an African going across to the States. I found 2 types of interactions that were quite common. The one was slightly a sort of an unknown about the continent and how little people knew. And they would ask me the most bizarre questions. Do you ride elephants?
Right.
Is there electricity or Wi-Fi in Africa? And I would have to then sort of go, this is my city, this is Harare. And so there was that sort of interaction, which was quite interesting. And then the other side, where there were a lot of people who were really intrigued by the idea of someone being from Zimbabwe. And that I really loved, because I got to speak about my country. I got to speak about how beautiful it is and the things that, you can do and see, and the people, And I think overall, whether it was someone coming from maybe some naivety, which definitely I felt quite a lot, or someone coming from a place of interest, all it really did was made me very proud to be from Zimbabwe. Where not only are we amazingly warm and vibrant people in a beautiful space, but we also do tend to know quite a lot about the outside world and the rest of the world. So overall, I would say it was an interesting, eye-opening experience, but it made me very proud to be Zimbabwean.
I totally get where you're coming from, because I remember going to the States and being asked, so were you born in a tree? Are there hospitals?
You see, I feel like everyone gets asked these bizarre questions.
And it's the same questions, because they think we all live in trees and we don't live in, beautiful houses that we're living in. And there's so much development, and there's a narrative and a story that we need to change
Absolutely.
about Africa, but more so about Zimbabwe as well. And I think you've done so well with that.
Oh, thank you.
But for me, it was a aha moment where I had to understand that I needed to identify myself as being something. And I think the culture and the environment there forces you to identify.
Absolutely.
But coming back, it was like home, and when you're home, you're home. But is this one of the reasons why you then started singing in Shona? Where was that coming from? Was it a part of the identity of you being Zimbabwean?
So I think I started singing in Shona because the music I was listening to from home was in Shona. You can't listen to Zim dancehall and be a big Zim dancehall fan, and it's all in Shona. You know? So for me, that was sort of a very natural progression. I don't know if it had much. My plan in the States was always to study and come back home.
Okay.
So it was never a thing of, am I gonna come home? I've always been quite strongly identified as a Zimbabwean in my brain. Like, first and foremost, white aside, I'm a Zimbabwean before I'm anything else. And so, I was making the music that I grew up listening to in the language that I grew up listening to it in.
I think it was, for me, and I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, when I heard you speak in Shona, I was like, oh my gosh, she gets it. And there's a quote that Nelson Mandela speaks about, to say, when you speak to someone in their native language, you're speaking to their heart. And I felt like that's where you were coming from with your lyrics and with your music. But we're going to take a break, Gemma. And when we come back, I want to hear all about what is happening now in your present life with music, and, what's happening in the future. So if you're watching The Ian Show, don't go away. We'll be right back with Gemma. Thank you. Welcome back to the EN Show, and I am with Gemma Griffiths. And Gemma, you went into a van.
Yes, ma'am.
And traveled Africa. Like,
I did.
What happened? What were you thinking? First of all, being a mom, I would be like,
I know, my poor parents.
What did you put them through?
So basically, I have always loved travel. And for me, seeing the African continent is by far my priority, because, these cities elsewhere are just going to get bigger and, they're going to carry on. But our coastlines and our forests are shrinking the entire time. We're losing coral, we're losing fish. And so for me, I wanted to see as much of the continent as possible. It's always excited me more than traveling abroad. And I thought, what better way to do it than to turn it into a creative sort of experience. I wanted to write a project that was in total immersion of an experience. And so I packed my studio and my instruments into a Land Rover with a roof tent on top and a little solar fridge. And I lived in that car for 2 years. And I actually wrote most of the music that you guys will have heard of mine until now, basically. You know, I did pop back into Zim every now and then, but I basically drove for 2 years across the continent, writing music, meeting musicians, eating, you know, seeing things. But Mugadan was released when I was in a little cafe in Bagamoyo in Tanzania. And Ndinewe and Titungamire and all of these things were filmed while I was away, you know? And I might have popped back, but it was basically everything I was doing was abroad. It was amazing.
Did you ever have a moment where you kind of said, okay, Gemma, this is scary. I'm in a unfamiliar territory. Something bad can happen. Maybe I'm going home. Or was it smooth sailing throughout?
So I would say the starting was the hardest part.
Okay.
The sitting there with this mammoth task of I'm about to drive across Africa in a car and I have no idea what's going to happen, what it's going to be like. But as soon as you're on the road, you're constantly talking to people who know those spaces really well. You're talking to locals, people who live there, and you can say, okay, so what happens okay, I'm in Diani. What is Malindi like? What is Mombasa like? And they'll start to tell you, okay, so you can do this, I wouldn't do that, you know? And then it becomes a lot less daunting because you're sort of on the ground and you're experiencing it. And I didn't have a single experience with a person that I felt unsafe. I really didn't. I got stuck in the mud a lot, and things fell off my car, and I got stuck in a cyclone. And, you know, weather-wise, that was the trickiest part. But I think the hardest part was definitely starting because it feels huge.
Yeah.
But then once you start, you're just in it, and it feels less huge.
I think that's probably going to be one of the most key, you know, moments in your life when you look back.
100%.
Because looking back at my life and where I have been, I wish I had taken a bit more of an adventurous route. Sometimes because when you get older, you don't have enough time and you work and responsibilities. But now that you are looking at yourself and you're thinking, okay, I've done this, the creative process probably was very easy for you then. Yeah. And do we have more to look forward to in terms of songs that that you are writing and, you know, down in your notebook? Because I understand that you have notebooks and lots of pens that you carry around.
How do you know this stuff?
Girl, I know everything.
Oh my gosh, I love writing stuff down, okay? For me, notebooks are everything. If you want to get me a present, get me a notebook and a pen. But yeah, I wrote down a heck of a lot of stuff. I still have to go through some of these books, but I wrote down everything because I hope to look back at it, as I already do, and just gather a lot of inspiration. I would do it again in a heartbeat. Life has sort of snowballed a bit and it has gotten a bit busy, but I definitely will continue adventuring. I'm actually doing up my car at the moment. I've just put a roof rack on. I'm getting a new roof tent, you know. So I've got something to mission around Zim in at least.
Were you a tomboy?
I think I was, actually. I'm pretty sure I remember having gloves with the fingers cut off and beanies.
I pretty much think you
I thought
were.
I was a skater girl for a while. Maybe it's in there somewhere.
So COVID came.
Yeah.
And you released some music.
I did.
Tell me about that process.
Yeah, so COVID actually stopped the trip. So when COVID hit, I stopped driving. And I then got a lot of time to sort of sit with the music that I had written and actually put it together properly, you know? So I had tons of ideas and now I sat down and I sort of worked through it. I released Ndinewe, which I had filmed on the road, but I released that during COVID. I released Titungamire. I released Maitabasa right near the end of COVID. It was a very interesting time. I think for a lot of us, we had to sort of relearn how to do things, especially in the creative space, you know, because our biggest form of income was taken away like this. But I also have met a lot of people who have been quite grateful for that time to sort of reevaluate. And I do think I do things differently now. But it allowed me to sort of refocus and then kick off with this year, which has just been touring all the music. So I released Pamwe, my EP, and then I released A Girl from Harare earlier this year.
And that became a tour.
And that became a tour.
And so we saw you travel Zimbabwe literally.
Oh my gosh,
We
in
were
a bus.
following you in a bus.
In a pink
Mutare
bus.
1 minute, Mashingo the other minute.
It was amazing.
And how was that though?
That was really cool. I set the challenge of organizing the tour myself with some help, but it was sort of my brainchild, and so I wanted to be really heavily involved. So myself and my team, as well as Tamba Events, who is Nigel, who does Bry Out and all these fun shows. I got him on board and we literally went to all the venues. We drove around the country. We picked the venues we wanted to play at. We met with everyone. We printed flyers. We got a bus. We covered it in pink floating heads and booked Airbnbs and hotels and did it ourselves. It was intense. I learned a huge amount about putting on a show because, I was doing sound and stage and lights, and I was, making sure that this guy had his Hennessy and that guy got locked out of his Airbnb at 2 a.m. and now I got to get on stage and I'm running around Bulawayo in sparkly pink shorts, It was a lot, but it was the best thing because I was on the ground in each of these places and I learned a lot about my fans and the people who were coming to the shows, and I got to connect with artists and creatives and stage engineers and sound engineers. It was really, I wouldn't have done it any differently.
I followed you on Facebook and, just to see where you were, what you were doing and all of that. But one thing that was very clear for me is that you're a people's person.
Oh, I love people.
And so when we come back from the break, I want to hear about your new projects and this music. Who do you want to partner with next? You've partnered with big people already. So what's in store with you in the near future? This is EN. I'm with Gemma, and we will be back shortly. See you soon. Welcome back to the EN show, and I'm with Gemma. Gemma, I was telling you during the break, I can't sing. I would love to sing 2, 6, 3, but I'm not gonna, break your earlobes. But for me, you've sang with some of the biggest names in Zimbabwe.
I have.
And I think that has kind of put you on a different level. Who would you want to sing with next?
Oh,
maybe not even in Zimbabwe, but I just think in general, like, what is your top?
Do you know when you have like a gigantic list of people you look up to?
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, collaboration is 2 things. It's giving someone a piece of yourself because you're being vulnerable enough to say, this is what I can give. Yeah. Here it is out on the table, take it or leave it. And then you're also getting to learn from someone and watch through their process of writing. How they hold themselves. And I feel that you can learn so much from different creatives.
But you've done that so well because I look at every collab that you've done and there's a different flavor that you bring to the mix with each one.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, where's your next challenge? Because you've done it so well. I'm assuming you want to challenge yourself on bigger platforms.
For sure. There's definitely a lot of artists that I look up to, obviously within Zim and outside. Outside, I would say Ira Star. I think she is a phenomenal writer. I love Joe Boy and how he writes. I love how Pataranking and Adekunle Gold write. There's a big list, that's the problem, of people that I would love to work with. I guess the thing is seeing what comes naturally. I don't like to force things. Okay. So I like when you actually end up almost bumping into each other, whether it's on social media, whether it's in person at a studio. I've actually stumbled across and bumped into people like the Sauti Soul Boys in Kenya. I was doing a studio session with Jules, and the next thing I'm having a fat chat with Bien from Sauti Soul, and I built these awesome friendships over just being in a space. And so I could say the list, and it's very long, of all the people that I really look up to. But I think at the end of the day, it's who I naturally end up connecting with.
I think that's God at work, though.
I really do. That's the thing.
Because sometimes God will place you in certain spaces where He will intentionally want you to meet someone so that you can create some magic.
100%.
But your songs are such sing-along songs. They're not complicated. You know, like when I sing that, when I hear your lyrics, I can quickly grasp on to them and I can sing along with them, which is very hard for me. Maybe it's me, I don't know. But for a lot of people to do, I've heard them sing along to your songs. And I think there is something that is familiar with the way you write. Do you see that? Is that intentional, or is it your penetration strategy?
It's definitely non-strategic. I would say I just, as a writer, because I love writing, you know, singing aside, I love songwriting. But I think I naturally write quite like almost slightly pop melodies where it's singable, you know, and I gravitate towards that quite naturally. When I hear something, I'll sort of fiddle. And if I were to get technical about it, you know, if I'm looking at it musically, I do sort of sit in some really nice spaces. I'll sit in a nice major triads and blah, blah, blah. It just naturally is what I write, is a bit more pop. And the melodies I like because then you can sing along. And I like singing along to music, so I kind of make music that I would want to sing along to. Yeah. It's maybe selfish, I don't know.
No, but I think for me, it's something that then gets a bigger audience to resonate with your music, because it's easier for us to sing it along with it. And everyone, you know, who can't sing like me, we try and sing, but you know, it's really having fun at the same time. So what's next on your plate? What's happening with you now? What are you working on? What are you looking to launch soon?
So 2023 is going to be bigger and better, I hope. Touch wood. But I am going to be releasing a new project, which I'm very excited about. So that's lots of new music, some new visuals, maybe a slightly more sassy side of Gem. Okay. And hopefully some more touring. You know, 2022, I got to tour Australia and Dubai. I went to New York, I went to London. I toured Zim. You know, I would like to just continue that and see where else I can perform.
Okay. And any acting? Any other? Because you're an artist, right?
I mean, I would love to.
So I would never box you in one place.
Yeah.
I would definitely see you in other areas.
100%.
Do you see yourself?
Yes, I definitely do. I did a play a little while ago called Mongile with Tatle and Hope Masike and a couple of amazing dancers and musicians. And I loved it. I love being on stage and speaking and acting. And I would do it a million times over. Film I would love to do as well. I think, again, it's what comes into my space. As long as I think I'm on a right track and a good headspace and sort of sticking to that, I think it'll all fall into place. But don't put it past me. I don't think I can see it happening.
What do you want to leave behind, Gemma, after all is said and done? At the end of the day, when your time is up and God says, you know, Gemma, I need you home. Yeah. What kind of legacy are you intending to leave behind?
I think something happy, you know, and something very proud of being Zimbabwean. No matter where I go in the world, and I really do hope to grow as a musician into sort of an international space, I think I want to lead with the fact that I am Zimbabwean and do whatever part I can do for my home. And then also that when people go online and life is stressful and it's intense and we have these bombarding phones that fill us with information, that the information that I leave is uplifting and it's positive, you know.
I think you're halfway there.
Thanks, girl.
Already. And so, Gemma, this brings us to the end of our interview, but I just want to say you're a fantabulous individual.
Thank you, Mia.
It's been an honor to meet you. And, you know, thank you so much for opening our season 2.
Yay!
I'm excited and setting the pace for us, but also wishing you well in all the projects that you're doing and working on. And we hope to see you back at EN telling us that you have conquered the world.
Yes, that is the plan.
That's the plan.
Give me a year. Maybe 3.
Maybe 3. Maybe 2. How about that?
There we go. That's a good compromise.
Right.
Thank
you for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. This is EN. I am with Gemma. And for more information and for more around this interview, please go onto our YouTube channel for EN Extra, and you'll hear more from Gemma. But from us on the set, we are sending love and light your way. Welcome to EN Extra, only available on YouTube. Please subscribe. And we're with Gemma. Gemma, this is the time where we have fun, girl. All right. So, Gemma,
Yes.
I had Natty O on the show for season 1. And I was sitting across from him, and one of the things that he said to me was, Emily, why is it that he took over my show first and foremost? Then he said to me, why is it that people don't support Zimbabwean music? And I said to him, I think there's an opportunity for us to really amplify what Zimbabwean music is about, and for us to start our kids young listening to Zimbabwean music. And he says, okay, but why are we not at that point where we can create an amapiano feel that goes global? And it got me thinking to say, what is it that we need to do as society to support Zimbabwean musicians? Are we doing enough? Because, I kind of felt his feedback to say, we need to start supporting young Zimbabweans or upcoming Zimbabwean music. And I don't know how we can do that effectively.
Yeah, for sure. I think a great case study would be Nigeria.
Yeah.
I know they're a lot bigger than us, and they have numbers on their side, but Nigerians support Nigerian musicians wholeheartedly, and I think they succeed so much because they really, really are so loved in their own country. And I think Zimbabweans do that. But I think what musicians need is them to be, we need our fans to be the ones who are sharing the music with everyone and showing a lot of pride for our musicians, really focusing on inside. I think one thing that we have as Zimbabweans that is really powerful are diasporans. We have Zimbabweans spread all over the world who can share the music, But I think it really is about taking pride in our musicians. And then the rest sort of follows suit, I do think, paying to go to shows, buying the merchandise, buying the songs or streaming the songs online, all of these things are little ways and everyone can contribute in such different ways. But I think first and foremost, it's seeing your favorite artist as a creative who needs the support and who is only going to get it from you, and you're a part of that, and seeing that you can make a change, and then whatever follows suit. I think we're getting closer and closer to really bridging some big international scenes. Nutty is a great example. I mean, his album Mustard Seed streamed unheard of numbers in Zimbabwe. It was unbelievable. It did so well, and he's caught some really, really amazing attention. And so I think now more than ever, with the world finally catching on to Africa and what our music scene has to offer, they're a little late, but rather late than never, these big sort of music hubs in the States and the UK and these big labels are starting to really look. Now is the time that we should be screaming and shouting, Zimbabwe, look at us. Right. And that is one reason why I, as an artist, never believe in the idea of competition with Zimbabwean musicians. I don't see any Zimbabwean musicians as a source of competition, because for me, it's us against the world. And not against the world per se, but Zimbabweans working together are the way that we're going to start getting artists out.
And I think you actually live that, because looking at the partnerships that you've done tours with different people, you've collaborated. I think you are the biggest collaborator in Zim, and you're just trying to bring everyone together. And I think that is just so awesome. But I think we also should take a mirror and look at ourselves and say, what is it that we can do to actually support the music industry so that it can become with monetary value for you guys? If my daughter came and said, I want to be a singer, immediately old school would be, oh, girl,
it's going to be tricky.
You can't live on that alone, right? But I think the world has since changed. Yeah. But I think we need to become a bit more progressive in owning our musicians and being 100%. Proud about them.
And the pride about them, if I've definitely heard cases where a big artist will be brought in from outside and paid a crazy amount of money, and then the Zimbabwean artists are getting negotiated with.
Yeah.
And you're negotiating with the biggest artist in your country.
Right.
You know, we've got to have enough pride to be like, you as an artist in your right, regardless of the fact that people might have seen you before or that you live here, like you are the king of dancehall, you are the king of pop, you are the Shona Prince, whatever it is. Like people have got to start seeing that this person is so invaluable, you know, that we've got to be able to see them on the same level that we see the international artists that we're bringing in.
Yeah.
Things like that, you know, I think.
And corporate Zimbabwe support local musicians.
Please, because
Support
that's
local
the
musicians.
thing, you know, like I think also something that people are slowly catching on to is influencing, you know. Zimbabwean musicians are incredibly influential. And often I'll find, you know, when people try to when a brand perhaps comes to a musician and says, hey, I want you to work with me on this, you know, and then the musician says, hey, it's going to cost you that much. Brands will often sort of go, I thought you'd just do it for the, you know, exposure. And it is a lot of work to build a social media platform. Yep. It is a huge amount of work.
Yep.
You wouldn't be coming to an artist who has these huge numbers if you had them yourselves. Yep. You don't. Yep. You haven't been able to build that yet. An artist has had to do this, and it's cost them money and years and time
and commitment
and so much failing and trial and error, you know. And it's a valuable asset, you know. I think seeing that and seeing artists as someone who's worked excessively hard to get to where they are without any sort of map. That's the biggest thing, because in this industry, we don't know what'll work. Yeah. We just know what won't work. We can say, okay, you mustn't do that, or you probably shouldn't do that, or you do need to do ABC to kind of set yourself up. But then it's just,
fingers crossed.
It's just like, I hope people love it. And it's a lot, because you're writing about your heartbreak.
Well, clearly you are on the right track.
Oh, I hope so.
Yes,
you know,
you are.
I hope so.
The last question for EN Extra. As a mom, I'm going to ask.
I even know what you're going to ask.
I'm going to ask, right?
Okay.
Is there love in the future for you? Gemma, are you going to get married? Are you going to have kids? Is this what you want in life eventually?
Okay.
Eventually.
I'll answer that.
I'm not saying now.
That's all right.
Right?
I don't have to spill the tea. I won't spill any tea. Definitely, I would love to. I want to be a mom one day, you know. If it's in my cards and God allows me to have babies, I would love to do that. You know, I'd love to get married and have a home and a family. I think I grew up in such a warm and wonderful environment that I would love to sort of recreate that. You know, dinners around the table and someone to lean on. For sure. I don't have any kids yet.
I wasn't gonna ask.
I'm still young. But yeah, definitely I think that would be awesome. And hopefully with the lifestyle, I'll be able to find some really good balance. You know, I know a lot of artists who have, so yeah.
And you took my last question away so brilliantly, so because I was gonna say, do you think the balance would be an issue? But you know what, women, we can do it, and
we can do it. I'm gonna have a husband who's, you know, there helping out, making sure the dinner's made, and we can all be a traveling family.
You heard it on the EN show.
Husbands can cook too.
All right, thank you, Gemma.
Thanks so much.
This is EN Extra, and you can only find this on YouTube.
You can only find it on YouTube.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
All right, see you soon. Sending love and light your way.